Okay. Hello, everybody. Haha. Another episode here.
Welcome.
Welcome back. Why do you keep coming back? That's a real question. So, today's
Quality content.
quality content right here. Wondering why we have an audience. So, here we got a new episode of Odyssey Academy, and we're going to be talking about... What are we going to be talking about today, Barth?
We'll be discussing the nature of morality and moral theories.
Moral theories. Wow, that's a deep conversation to have. And, you know, we're kind of tired right now. Just a little. I know I am. You know, I've had a long weekend. Yeah. But we'll get through this. There's a lot to dive into because morality is so subjective and everyone has their own definition. And, of course, when it comes to politics, morality is such a polarized
dominant
issue.
Factor.
Yeah, to be honest. So... And, you know, I would be really happy to actually get the input from the audience, like doing a live stream and then getting like comments as questions and then reading those questions or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a Q&A session, that sort of thing.
That's true. But so far it's just us two. So talking about morality. One day, man. Just got to keep producing this quality content.
Yeah.
So morality. Right?
Yes.
What's right? What's wrong? What you shouldn't do? What you should do? When it comes to human nature, it's pretty obvious that everyone has their own moral standards. So another word for morality would be principles, moral guidelines. Things that people honestly live by, pretty much. Like a set of rules. Would you say you're a moral person, Parth?
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah.
The fact that I have to think about this, the audience is gonna be like, Why
are you struggling?
It depends on how you define morality and which moral theory you fall under. Because in a certain sense, 100% I am moral. In a different sense, I may not be so moral. Does that make sense? It really just depends, dude. There's so many moral theories that if you go over, some of them will emphasize that you be more selfish, right? Like if you've heard of Ayn Rand. Have you heard of Ayn Rand?
Ayn Rand. Remind me again.
She's the... let me quickly research her because this is really important when it comes to morality.
Okay.
Yeah, Ayn Rand was a Russian-American author. She's a writer and philosopher. So she's written, books like The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, and she's developed a philosophical system that's called objectivism. And objectivism, I don't want to say that it's like a moral theory because it's not. It's more of a philosophical thing. But
right.
Okay, so objectivism is defined as the belief that certain things, especially moral truths, exist independently of human knowledge or perception of them. So you have to be extremely objective and rational, essentially. That's what she's saying. You cannot... you can apply all the moral theories in the world that you want, coming from whichever source that you want, such as religion, or, let's say, a public figure. But there are going to be facts and certain things that, like it says in the definition here, exist independently of human knowledge or perception of them.
Okay.
So
I understand that when it comes to morality, it's good to have a standpoint of I'm going to be rational and I'm going to take this on a fact-based platform. So when it comes to principles, it's obvious to identify what is right and what is wrong and what is fact. So when we're getting into morality, we're diving into some deep philosophy roots here. And when it comes to morality, based on my research, it pretty much branches off into 3 different sections. And these sections all involve the term ethics. So ethics is pretty much just the study of morality.
Right.
Now, regarding these 3 branches of morality, we have 1, meta-ethics, 2, normative ethics, and 3, applied ethics. So understanding morality, I think I got this from like a philosophical website. I'll link it in the description below.
Definitely.
Back to the branches. Number 1, meta-ethics. So this branch deals with just basic questions about morality itself, right? So philosophers can ask these questions and they'll just go on a tangent and they'll go days on end just trying to answer these basic questions. Questions like, what is morality? What is justice? Is there truth? It's kind of a open-ended question. And it's understandable how these questions can really make people think for days on end. I mean, I'm pretty sure I couldn't even answer those questions right off the bat. Like, what is justice? And I'm pretty sure they had that question back when they made the Constitution. So,
oh yeah,
hard stuff right there to answer. Number 2, normative ethics. So this type of branch deals with different other sections as well. So a lot of these branches are branching off into other things. So stay with me.
Yeah.
Number 2, normative ethics. It branches off into 3 different categories. And these 3 different categories pretty much give a simple guideline on what is ethical and what is not. So there's different types of ethics. So deontology, am I saying that right? Deontology?
Deontology.
Deontology, that's one section. Number 2, and utilitarianism, that's number 2. And then virtue ethics, that's number 3.
So what are these 3 again? They're branches of ethics or something, or what?
They're branches of what's called normative ethics. So if we go by them one by one, the first one, deontology, that's how you say it, right?
Deontology. Yeah.
Deontology. So basically, from the brief paragraph I read about it on my research, it's something of principles that people follow, right? So when it comes to an ethical person, someone who is falling under this category of deontology is someone who is dutiful, right? Someone who always follows the rules. So there's a list of rules that this individual will follow always in every situation. Rules like don't steal, don't lie, don't, commit adultery, don't murder. And this kind of mindset can be applied to something like the Catholic Church and the 10 Commandments. Or, if you're in a professional job and you're following a code of ethics. So an example of this type of mindset would be, imagine you're a computer programmer, okay? And there's a missile headed your way. It's not headed your way, but it's headed towards, the country you live in, right? And it's headed for a heavily populated area. And you as a computer programmer have a code of ethics to follow. And one of those code of ethics says you will never hack any system. So you have to follow that rule no matter what. But when it comes to this situation, this missile is going to end up killing a bunch of people. So you have to make a decision on either you're not going to follow the rule or you're going to follow the rule of not hacking a system. The missile here, I'm considering a system.
Okay.
That's the idea behind that mindset. And I think in most cases, many people will break that rule, that code of ethic right there on not hacking, and hack the missile so they can save a bunch of lives. I know I would.
Definitely.
So that's the idea.
Yeah, I would too. But so would that be, if you did go with that, then you would be a utilitarian, correct?
Yeah. So that goes into the second category here, the second section, where it's a form of consequences, right? So always asking the question, like, what is fair, what is unfair? And this kind of thinking can be applied to, I would assume, our justice system right now that we have in America. So we have reason-based approach toward, different degrees of a crime. So we determine what's the punishment, what is fair, what is unfair. And we pretty much delegate through that type of process. That's pretty much the second section right there. The third section, which is virtue ethics, is pretty much just ethics through experience. So, you go through your life and, you either have these role models like your dad or a mentor or a teacher, and they pretty much teach you what is ethical and what is unethical. So that's pretty much ethic through experience. Mm-hmm. That's as far as I know in respect to the 3 sections right there in respect to normative ethics. We could expand on those one by one if you wanted to. But what do you think so far?
So that's a good question. Yeah. I actually wrote a paper in college when I was taking an English class, and actually so let me start from here. The professor basically explained what deontology versus utilitarianism was. and she gave us a prompt to write about. Essentially, we have a situation here. How would you go about it? And she said there's no correct answer, but just give your thought process on it. And everyone had different answers, right? It was one or the other. It was either deontological or utilitarian. And so the idea was that there's a fake city, okay? And this fake city is called Amalas. And in Amalas, it's the perfect city, essentially. So there's literally hundreds of people who live amazing lifestyles. So we're talking like they have all the money they want. They have all the happiness they want or could ever ask for. They have happy families. They have happy relationships. Again, all the wealth in the world, whatever makes you happy, essentially, okay? Everything's perfect. So now there's one issue here, okay? In this city, there is a child who is locked up in a I don't want to say a cage, but it's like a little wooden I guess a wooden cage. It's so like dark. A wooden little stall, okay? And it's completely dark in there. This child is basically it's stuck there, and it's in complete misery. It's in complete depression. It's living in its own filth. It's the opposite, essentially, of all of the rest of the citizens of Amalas. Now, you have one of two options. You can either A, choose to leave as a form of, I guess, like a protest to the child just not being in this little cage or this little wooden box, let's put it that way. And the other option would be you just live your life and you're just like, hey, it sucks to suck, but like there's this one child we're talking about versus the rest of the entire city, which is just doing amazing. So what do you do in this situation? And I think if I remember correctly, if you were utilitarian, you would live in the city, and if you were deontological, it doesn't matter who's in the cage or what's going on. You have to stick by this rule of every single person has the right to live, like at least a basic standard of living, right?
Right.
And you were going to go to the ends of the earth to live by these standards
so
or
you'll never
this
break the rules.
morality. Yeah. Yes. So you, as a form of protest, are going to leave. But that does not necessarily mean that anything is going to change in the city. It could stay the exact same, but you would take a stand against it and leave. Or you would just be like, hey, look, I gotta, sucks to suck. I'm sorry, but,
Yeah, that's interesting because I think of a situation where organ transplants, right?
Right.
In the hospital, you have patients awaiting a certain organ, like a kidney or a liver or a heart. They need that organ to live. What comes to mind is, where do those organs come from? Well, they have to come from another healthy individual, right? I think to visualize utilitarianism more is to take a situation where, let's say you have 4 transplant individuals who are awaiting a certain organ, right? So you have one person needed a heart, another one needing a lung, another one needing a liver, and another one needing a kidney. So these are essential organs of the human body. Well,
yeah.
If each one of these individuals need these specific types of organs, that pretty much indicates that one person has to die in order to save 4 individuals who need that transplant. When it comes to utilitarianism, I keep saying that wrong.
Utilitarianism.
The single individual, the healthy one, would have to give up his own life to save the lives of the 4. So I think of a Star Trek quote here, where the needs of the many outweigh the need of the one.
Right.
So there's an idea there to more visualize, to help you visualize what that is all about. So it's very iffy. It's very circumstantial because what comes to mind to me is like socialism and communism, things like that, where it gets really extreme.
Capitalism.
Right?
Yeah.
I think this type of ethic it can work in most cases, but it can also be taken too far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it comes to communism, it went too far in respect to they started killing healthy individuals or wealthy individuals and started distributing the wealth. But in the end, they ended up starving a lot of their own people. And
yeah.
This type of mindset in respect to morality, it can get out of hand real quick, right?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't take into consideration that if a society is left to be free, then you're going to inevitably create inequality. And if you want to create equality, meaning not equality of opportunity, but equality of outcome, then you need to have a form of government control, which is you're abdicating authority to the government. And they decide what's moral. They decide that, financial resources need to be distributed equally because everyone deserves to have the exact same amount of things, financially at least. But, the downside of that is that if you're not going to live in a free system where you are going to have to literally suppress people who would otherwise excel in a free system, and you're going to have to uplift people who would not be so successful.
I think that's the idea behind Cortez's platform. She wants to pretty much suppress billionaires in order to help a lot of poverty people or people in poverty. So
right.
There's this morality being applied here where you need to sacrifice a few individuals to save a bunch more individuals. And it's very subjective, and it's a very heated argument to have because, you're talking about sacrificing some individuals, right? That's
definitely
not okay, right? As far as I'm concerned. It's kind of a inhuman thing to do, even when it comes to wealth. And I think nowadays the political platform on the left, they very much agree with this type of ethic, utilitarianism.
You mean on the left?
I think on the left. Yeah.
So if I don't have them incorrect, I think they would be more deontological, wouldn't they? Because if they have to follow a certain virtue, and the reason I'm saying that is because I think it has to do with the essay that I wrote in college, where deontological. If you are deontological, you have to stick by your virtues and by your ethics, no matter what the situation is, right? But utilitarian, the base of that word, it's kind of like it's, how do I explain it? It's by definition, it says the doctrine that actions are right if they are useful for the benefit of the majority. Okay,
yeah, that's
interesting.
What I was thinking. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe you're right. Yeah. So, wow.
That's interesting to think about because I feel like there's a big shift in respect to the left adopting this kind of morality set. So they're very much. Let's name a few things about the left, and I hate to trash on them, but we can both agree that they're very emotional. A lot of feelings dictate their actions.
Definitely.
They love to be morally correct. They love to have justice on their side, and they love to be crusaders, essentially. And when it comes to what's the word? Outcomes, right? They're very much in terms of equality, right? So they don't believe in opportunity of outcome. Am I saying that right? They believe in equality.
Equality of opportunity and equality of outcome.
Okay, so they believe in equality of outcome, right?
Yes.
Not opportunity.
Yeah, for if we're talking about the left end, yeah.
Interesting. Oh, we've made a breakthrough, people. This is the root of their cause.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? So I think I don't want to jump to the conclusion that utilitarianism and deontology apply to the left and right away, because if you think about it, let's take utilitarianism for example. If if it is basically going to side with the majority, I think it depends on where the majority is, correct? So let's say the majority of society is doing decently well. As of today's state, 100%. Like, utilitarianism is on the left, right? Because they want to benefit the majority of the population in the sense that they want to take away from the few wealthy and give back to, I guess, the people at the bottom of the hierarchy.
Right.
But I don't know how solidly we can apply that to the left or the right. Does that make sense?
I think what you're trying to say is there's a small percentage of minorities, right? But compared to the whole population of America, I think there's like more white people in America, so they would be considered the majority, right?
Right. See, so but then utilitarianism would be falling onto the right if that was the case. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a little iffy.
I think it's context dependent.
It is very context dependent. It really is. It depends on what perspective you're taking it from and what viewpoint.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the left, I think they see themselves as the majority.
Yeah.
They definitely say, well, our needs need to be met before anyone else's.
Yeah.
Bit selfish, but they're going with that. They're rolling with it. We'll see what happens.
100%. I wanted to take it back really quickly to that example of Amalas. I wanted to get your opinion on that. What do you think about that? Like, if you were in that situation, what would you do? And what would be your reasoning for it?
I would fall into the realm of deontology. So I would not break my own principle on saying, I would not break the rule on everyone deserves not to suffer. So it's obvious that one individual is suffering.
Yeah.
That is not okay. So I very much
so you would
following
leave.
The rules. I would leave.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, I don't remember what I wrote in the past. I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure I took the exact same position as you did.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah. I'm 99% sure in the past, in the essay that I wrote, I'm pretty sure I was also on that side of deontology. But that being said, I think nowadays, if you asked me, quite honestly, I think I might even stay. And it depends on the rest of the context, right? Like, what is happiness to me? Like,
it is very context dependent. Yeah, there needs to be details that need to be uncovered.
So if I was happy in my own personal reality, like everything was going great, I had found meaning in my life, I was, I don't know, if everything is happening great. Oh, I left one part of the story out. You have to, as a citizen of Amalas,
I was remembering that detail.
This child.
You have to see the child every day, don't you?
Yes.
That would get to me. Yeah, I would leave.
Yeah, it might get to me too. Shit. Damn it. I want to say I would stay, but I feel like, I don't know, man. If I see that every single day, it might eventually get to me too.
Yeah, it's not human, to be honest, to see let alone a person to suffer, a child suffering. It's not something okay with our evolutionary genes, I suppose, because it's like,
right.
As a man, it's natural to be a provider, right? It's natural to be like a protector.
Right.
So, when you see a helpless individual who's very vulnerable suffer in any way, it's like, all right, this isn't working. I don't like this.
Yeah, I think so. I think it depends on the person too, right? Like, if you had someone like the Joker from Batman, right? He wouldn't care at all. He'd just be like, "Hell yeah, let's have some fun with you, kid." You know.
Actually, let's actually expand on that, because the whole Joker and Batman series, the whole story behind that is so complex. It's got morality all over it. Because when it comes to Batman and Joker, Batman always refuses to kill this evil guy.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to know, because it's like, is Batman moral, or is he just or he just can't kill anymore because he's so traumatized? So there's that to talk about.
Damn, see, no, you're right, because but what, so I would think about it like this, right? He is steadfastly sticking to his rule of, I'm not going to kill anyone, right? And he's doing this because that's his rule, right? Like, he's deontological. But if he saves the Joker, He's risking the lives of other people by doing so. Mm-hmm. You see, and that's I guess the dilemma there, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I also have another situation in which this is, I don't want to say it's exactly similar, but it's something related to this, right?
Sure.
Where you have a building full of 60 people, okay? And I've asked this this question to a couple other people, a couple of other of my friends. And so there you have an entire building full of 60 people, and you're in this building. You are not one of the 60 people, okay? So there's 61, including you. And there's a voice that goes off in your head, okay? And the voice is an actual voice. It's not like you're mentally insane or something like that. There's an actual voice, like, I don't know, for some reason, like God is speaking to you or something like that, okay? And his voice is telling you, you have to kill 30 of the people in this building, otherwise we, as in the people that are talking to you in the head, are going to kill all 60 of the people. What do you do in that situation? But it's either you kill 30 people or 60 people will die. What would you do? And by the way, that includes children, women, men, old people, young people, and you can choose to kill them in any way. You could like make it like a quick sufferless, is that how would you say it?
Painless.
painless, sufferless, painless death. And so, what would you do in that situation?
That's really dark, man. It's a really dark situation. I mean, based on rational thought, it would be to choose 30, right? Because you don't want everyone to die.
That's what I would do too.
Yeah,
but it's tough really to do that.
Who would be the person that would choose for all of them to die? That's interesting.
I've actually asked a couple of my friends this, and one of them did say that they would let 60 people die because
they don't want to kill anyone.
He couldn't handle the thought of exactly. He couldn't handle the thought of like killing an innocent child or something. And I said, in my opinion, you have it. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's what I said. Like, you have a duty to kill 30 people because don't think about it like you're killing 30. Think about it like you're saving 30
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be my mindset as well. Because it's like, I can't put my own feelings into this. It's like, okay, there needs to be something done about this. I have two choices. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. It's so dark. Jeez. Always killing people. Always suffering.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why Batman, I'm going back to Batman because he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
That story connects to a lot of people because it's so complex and it's so, relatable in respect to like human emotion and human morality.
Yeah.
And it's always a interesting clash between these two individuals, the Joker and the Batman, because one represents evil and one represents order, and it's a classic showdown between good and evil. But I used to go into a lot of details about the story and the lore, and I ended up finding that the Batman himself, Bruce Wayne, he actually needs the Joker in respect to his own sanity. And I think this was like revealed in a certain comic where it's a classic comic where it's the Joker versus the Batman, and the Joker kidnaps like Gordon, the police chief, and then he almost kills his daughter, and Batman comes in, saves the day, and he has yet another opportunity to kill the Joker, but he doesn't. And it's the classic ending where it's like, oh, he doesn't kill the Joker because he's so fixed to his principles, like he's such a dutiful guy, the Batman.
Yeah.
But this certain comic, I forget which one, it ended kind of differently. It ended with the Joker telling a joke. Just in general.
Oh, I remember this. There was a movie made on this.
Oh, there was there? Okay, I read the comic.
I think so. It was at a circus, was it not?
It was at a circus, yeah. So
yeah,
it comes at the end. This is like toward the end, so spoilers.
Yeah.
He doesn't kill him in the end. Mm-hmm. So Batman doesn't kill the Joker, but the Joker tells a joke. It's like a really cheesy joke too. Yeah. And when he tells the joke, Batman himself, he ends up laughing. He laughs at the joke.
Yeah.
And I think it ends right there. Like it ends the movie right there. I don't know if it that's the end scene, but that's the end scene for the comic. And that pretty much indicates there's a lot of speculation on what it means, but there's a big consensus that Batman is pretty much in sync with the Joker's insanity, because the joke itself, it was like really cheesy, it was like really dumb, but when he made the joke, the Joker, it was like a cheesy joke, like a knock joke or something like that. Batman ends up laughing, so it's like, whoa.
So normal person wouldn't laugh at that?
No, a normal person wouldn't laugh at that, because it's like, it's such a dumb joke. It's like, why would you laugh at that? But Batman ends up laughing at it because he's so connected to this individual that, you know, he understood the stupid joke, and they were both on the same level for like a second. And I think that level of connection Bruce Wayne felt, and it caused him to laugh. So it was like, oh, these two individuals need each other. And that's why the Batman will truly never kill the Joker or something like that. I don't know. It's very so philosophical, and, you know, there's a lot of debates online. But I pretty much stopped looking into it for a while now.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's a good example for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because when I think about this, I like to take a tangent into really dark individuals, right? So you have, in today's world, mass murderers, people who commit those massacres. In respect to the New Zealand shooting, you have serial killers, Zodiac Killer, Ted Bundy. Who else? Or like these massive dark individuals. Just immoral people in general, right? So we both know, I think everyone knows, that it is possible for an individual to lose his morality, right? What does that mean? Well, I think that means it's possible for an individual to recognize that there is a morality, but he decides not to follow it. So he decides not to go by any of these ethics, right? So he's not going to follow any rules, and he's not going to meet the needs of the many. So he decides to trash that all out. And he pretty much disregards morality in general. So I'm just looking at the individual in respect to like a serial killer. So, you have these individuals who they commit horrible acts of just horrific scenes, right? So you either have like shootings in schools, in churches, in temples. You have shootings in, I think there was like one in a YouTube center. I think a woman did that, but too many to remember, right? And we're growing so numb to these shootings. I think I am, to be honest. So they happen like every other like month. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
which is a sad commentary on life.
It is a sad commentary, to be honest. But I think this is a good chat to have in respect to morality, right? So it's obvious that these individuals lose a sense of morality. Why do you think that is?
I think that either they didn't have the code with them from the beginning, or they just don't really care about morality from the very beginning, or they have such a high priority towards their main cause that it trumps the morality of killing. Meaning it's killing is lower on the priority list as compared to making sure that the world either knows about their cause or following through with the cause. Think about, for example, suicide terrorists, right? Where they have, they strap a bomb to their chest, and for their
they have a sense of meaning, so they die for that cause.
Yeah, exactly. For their cause, they are prioritizing their cause above their own death, and the death of many other people, right? So I think really it's interesting because I think there's just so many different forms of morality, right? Like you have all these, you have like moral subjectivism, you have cultural relativism, ethical egoism, divine command theory. There's so many like literally theories. And if we go back to the definition of morality, it's like morality is a system through which we determine right and wrong conduct. So the guide to what is good or right conduct.
Okay.
But each moral theory it says something different about what is right and what is wrong, right? Then you get the mix of ethics in there, but ethics is the philosophical study of morality. So it depends, right? Like you have if you're talking about utilitarianism, you have there's another one right here, Kantian theory. There's rights-based theories. There's contractarianism. All right, there's 10 of at least the ones that I have up right now, or there's 10 of them.
Okay.
Different theories of morality. I forgot, what was the main question you asked?
Main question was, in respect to these dark individuals, do you think that they lose a sense of morality, or do they have a totally different sense of morality altogether?
I think that's what it is. I think they have a completely different sense of morality.
Okay.
I think their morality, and also here's the thing, morality is also skewed by facts, right? Because people don't understand that some facts may not be correct and some facts may be correct, right? You have the basic idea of facts over feelings, right? To think in a rational and logical way. But how do you know one fact is correct while another one isn't? Because if you believe in a certain thing, you can fall under something called confirmation bias and find evidence to prove your way of thinking, right? So let's say one guy has a moral system, like his code is basically to, I guess he's a hardcore Christian, right? Versus another guy who's a hardcore Muslim, and so they have different, moral codes. Let's put it that way, but they're probably going to have some of the same moral codes as well, right? For example, I don't know. Let's just say they have the same, part of their moral code is different, but part of it is the same. Okay. Even if it's the same in a certain area, something where the media comes in and they distort facts and they put in their own narrative, or they don't necessarily fact check themselves, they can easily fall into a category where they think that their moralities actually don't align when they actually do. Does that make sense? I know I'm having a hard time explaining myself here, but it's a different thought process. But I think that there is a little bit of pointless fighting out there, because here's the thing, right? When you're so far brainwashed into your let's say culture or religion, you will do so many things that you didn't think you could do as a human being, and it's all in the name of your cause, your moral codes, let's put it that way.
I think you can boil it down to two sections of morality, to be honest, and I found this in my research. So there's something called absolute morality, and there's something called cultural morality. So absolute morality is a global sense of morality that everyone agrees to, right? So everyone can pretty much agree to, well, genocide is wrong, right? So that's a moral fact. When it comes to cultural morality, this could be applied to, let's say, punishment in respect to different areas of the world, right? So we have some constraints on the death penalty in respect to American justice, where the death penalty is commonly practiced in places like Israel or the Middle East. That's their form of justice, right?
Right.
So that's a sense of cultural morality. So it's different in respect to what you were saying, based on your upbringing, and it could be related to a sense of brainwashing in respect to the culture that you grew up in. And it's safe to say that everyone has their own sense of cultural morality.
Right.
So just to bounce off of your idea, people in respect to justice, different governments in different continents, different areas of the world have their own form of justice, right? And I think even different states have their own form of justice. Like Texas is very in agree with they're very with their they agree with the use of
Guns?
the death penalty.
Oh, death penalty. Okay.
Well, in California, it's like it's put off like often. Like we hardly practice it at all.
Yeah.
So there's a comparison there. Let's see.
I think see that's a key thing that you said, because this is why we have separation of powers between the federal government and state government, and people can choose to live in the state that really best resembles their own, I guess, identity, right? And not everyone does this, right? Because everyone wants to live in sunny California, for example, right? But
yeah, why is that?
And they maybe I guess it's just weather, other reasons, job opportunities, and everything like that. But
okay.
When it comes down to their moral code or their thought process, for example, let's take us for example, we are pretty much anti-left, and we live in one of the most leftist areas in the world, right? Or close to it, at least, LA.
That's not our fault.
Yeah, I know, right? But now, I forgot what the main point was, but I think that's a good point that you brought up. This is why we have to have separation of powers. But you're right, yeah, morality, they have different morals, right? Like different states will have align themselves, at least in the majority, with different sets of moral codes. And you can see this in the laws, the different state laws that they pass, and
the
different people they elect in different parties and things like that.
There's a ton of different laws in respect to each state. So, I think in California there's a lot of laws in respect to the highway and driving in general. Where in a place like I don't know, Alaska, where the driving laws aren't so as strict.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to know that there is even a division in morality in respect to American states. So American states are very divided. So they're divided in respect to political views. They're divided in respect to morality views. They're divided in respect to economic views. And they're divided in respect to even race. And
legal views.
And legal views too. Yeah, that is crazy. I think in Texas you can buy any gun at 18. Is that what it is?
I'm not too sure, actually.
I forget. Yeah, because in California you can't buy a handgun at 18. You have to be 21.
I see.
What else? Yeah, so divided. It's United States of America, right? It's not really united.
Should be Divided States of America.
Divided States of America.
That would not be a good rep for
DSA.
the world. I know, right? DSA.
We're so
DSA.
un-American. But yeah, I mean, there is obviously a federal government that tries to keep everyone unified under the same constitution. And,
right.
Things are going good so far. I mean, things aren't too radical yet.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I feel like it's getting there.
It's getting there? Do you think there's going to be the Civil War?
I mean, maybe not a civil war, but I definitely think so. I definitely think that it is getting divided, and it has more potential to be divided. But you know what? Here's the thing. I don't think we're truly, truly divided down to the core. And I think the reason is because that I don't think the majority of people actually know what they're talking about when it comes to politics. And what I mean by that is, they follow what one side does or the other. They don't really research it. They don't really do thorough analysis. And when they actually do the analysis, I'm sure people will find common ground. I'm pretty sure people will stop demonizing, one side or the other. But the main people I think that are demonizing are the people on the radical ends of the spectrum, right? Like we talk about the radical left or like the radical right, right wing. But I don't know. It's a good question.
It's kind of a sad question, to be honest, with a sad answer. Because, when it comes to America, it's supposed to be the greatest nation in the world, right?
Yeah.
And with a nation so divided and so locked in this chaotic political system, it's sad to think that even our own nation, the country we grew up in, is so polarized, right? So there's people who are so extreme in respect to the left, in respect to the right. It's
yeah.
It's kind of depressing when I first figured out about politics. It's like, whoa, people aren't so happy and nice about the country itself.
Yeah.
Everyone wants
I
control.
think people can generally gather in one area when they have similar codes of conduct and ways of operating, but there's always going to be people who are going to challenge the status quo, who are going to think differently, who are going to change the system, I guess, and just think differently, right? And you're going to get clashes in any system because people just inevitably will not think that in the same way, right?
I think in respect to people being unified, religion is a type of institution that really gets people together. So
Yeah.
worldwide, you have religions like Christianity, Hinduism. What's Islam? Muslim?
Islam and Judaism.
Judaism. Okay, yeah. So a ton of unification worldwide, and
Yeah.
in respect to these religions, they each have their own set of morality codes and their own set of rules.
Yeah.
So I think, what was I going to say? They're more unified and they have their own set of morality rules. I could argue that religions themselves are more moral than people who are not religious. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do
Atheism
that. Let's
versus
do
religion.
that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think in respect to my view, religion offers a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, and a sense of humility, vulnerability. I think every religion has that sense of that sense of convincing people that they are not who they think they are. So, when it comes to Christianity, it's you're a sinner, you're a natural sinner, and you need to live up to God's standards, and you need to follow His moral codes of ethics. And I think the same goes for like Judaism and Muslim. And Muslim's a very different religion. I don't know much about it, but that's a religion that has a lot against women themselves, right? Like they don't have a lot of women freedom or like women rights.
Yeah, they suppress women's rights a lot. In the Middle East, at least.
In the Middle East, okay.
Yeah, some in some countries that you'll see, like I think it was called Sharia law, where you have a lot of suppression essentially, and I guess we can get into that in another episode for sure, because I think that's important to talk about.
Yeah,
people often talk a lot about Islamophobia, but I think it's an interesting subject to get into for sure.
Back to the atheists. So every atheist I've met, to be honest, they don't seem like the kind of person who would be moral. And I don't mean to shit. I don't mean to shit on atheists, but it's just through my experience alone. When it comes to most atheists that I've met, they identify themselves as atheist just because they want to be different from the norm. So just because they say, religion is stupid, and they're kind of like rebelling, so they kind of identify as atheists. But I'm pretty sure there are reasonable and very moral atheists out there, to be honest. I just haven't met any.
Okay.
But what about your viewpoint? What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, in my opinion, I think that you have to look at it on an overall level, right? Like if you had, let's say, a graph, and you plotted every religious person and every atheist or non-religious person, I think if you look at the majority, I think you're correct in the sense that religious people tend to be more moral on average, and atheists tend to be less moral on average because if you really want to put it this way, I think they connect more to human nature, the base human nature, right? When we talk about evolution, where, religion, I think, is meant to put a sort of cap or sort of to tame human nature, the evil and the dark side of human nature, where all you're thinking about is survival and power and I don't know, like reproduction and like all these things, and you have to commit sins, so to speak, right, to I guess get those things or
That's
to
a good
have
point.
those things.
Yeah, your sense of morality goes down when you get into survival mode, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, atheists, I think, tend to be more connected to the baser nature, the base nature of human nature.
Human nature?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, of humanity, exactly. And because they don't have necessarily a code to stop them. Now, I'm not saying this is true for all atheists. I definitely think that there are a lot of atheists out there who may have their own moral set of codes where they, just as humans, are, they're probably emotional and they would not commit any acts of, sin against another human being, or not just sin, but like they would not do an evil act against another person because they're good-hearted human beings deep down, at least more so than you would think. Now, but I think, okay, so here's where my opinion lies. I think if you look at it on average, yes, I think you're right. The religious people tend to be more morally conscious because they are also God-fearing, right?
Right.
Because if you deny that there is a God, someone watching you, then you're free to do whatever you want. But with religious people, it's like, hey, if you don't follow these rules, then God is watching and he will punish you by sending you to hell if you don't follow, yeah, exactly. So people, it will inevitably lead to, I guess, better behavior on the part of human beings. It will control their need to, I guess, dominate if they're, power hungry, let's put it that way. But yes, I'm sure there are religious people out there that are very evil, and there are moral people or atheist people out there that are very morally, conscious, and they're very good people. But on the average, I think you're correct. Religious people do tend to err more on the side of morality and being good because they're God-fearing for the most part. And I think they grew up with a code.
Right, and I think that's true mostly because religion gives a sense of order, right? So in respect to developing as a kid, you need a sense of structure, right, and a sense of responsibility. Yeah. And I think most religions offer that type of lifestyle, which helps them develop with that discipline. I know it did to me, to be honest, because my parents are very religious. But I don't know about your parents. Are they very religious?
No, actually, they're not really. Quite the opposite. Comparatively speaking, when we talk about, I was raised Hindu, right? But if you compare our family, my family, to any other Hindu family or any other Indian family, whether they're from India or from here in the States, we're typically a lot less
traditional.
Yeah, traditional. We're a lot less traditional and a lot less religious, so to speak. I grew up, going to the temple and praying, but not so often that it became a habit, right? It was more of just a belief in God rather than a moral set of codes. When I was growing up, just by my own human nature, I was just a good person, I was kind of like a baby, let's put it that way.
Okay.
I didn't want to believe that people can be so cruel or evil because I wasn't that way. So I thought, if I'm not that way, then the majority of people won't be that way. But that was a false way of thinking about things. Then I got a hit. Then you get a certain hit of reality after a while, and you start to realize that not everyone is as morally uprighteous as they would claim. There's a lot of things that go on underneath the surface of people that you can sort of read based on their subcommunications, but you don't want to believe.
Okay.
But that's just
like
what it is.
People.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like those like super, super power hungry people that will do anything to put their own interests above, everyone else.
Yeah, the people.
And I don't think being self-interested is bad. But
okay.
that's I think they take it a little far to the point of like like it's at the detriment of other people around them.
Okay, yeah, for sure. There's definitely those kind of individuals who, who pretty much uphold the moral flag all the time. They're a little too moral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and those are people you want to watch out for, because
Yeah,
I feel like
always
those
watch
are
out
those are the people. And it's funny because author Robert Greene said this in his book, The 48 Laws of Power, in the preface of the book. It says you want to watch out for these people because they're often the most adept players at power, and they don't even realize it. They're half of them are playing it subconsciously, you know. Because again, remember, it's also part of human nature. So maybe they don't realize they're doing it. Maybe they do. Who knows?
I think a good example would be OJ's lawyer. I forget his name, but I don't think you know him.
Okay.
Back in the day when OJ Simpson, the famous football player, when he was indicted for the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson, OJ ended up being innocent, right? He ended up winning that trial. The main reason why he ended up winning that trial was because he had a very moral lawyer. So this guy was a black lawyer who was very, very preachy, and he was such a man of morals and such a high prestigious individual who, you know, spoke truth everywhere he went, and he preached, you know, black struggles to every single person, and he was just a black representative for communities in LA, black communities in LA. So there's an example for you of a person who is maybe just a little too moral.
Yeah, definitely.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Nothing to add to that. It was just that thought of someone being that moral ended up helping OJ through the trial, and he pretty much helped a criminal. He helped a murderer, because it's obvious that OJ killed Nicole Brown Simpson and the other dude, I forget his name.
Right.
But terrible.
Yeah.
Sad stuff.
Yeah. Definitely. So, I do have a couple of moral theories here that I think would be worthwhile to look into. Did you go over your notes, by the way? Do you want to go over anything else?
That's pretty much all my notes, to be honest. Those different branches of morality and ethics, and absolute morality and cultural morality.
Okay, definitely. So, you know, there's another important distinction to be made here, right? Are moral theories descriptive or prescriptive? Meaning, in presenting a moral theory, are we merely describing how people in their everyday doings and thinkings form a judgment about what is right and wrong, or are we prescribing how people ought to make these judgments? That's the question. Essentially, are we going with, you know, morality as a way of looking at human nature, in the sense that this is what humans naturally do, and this is how humans naturally think and form a judgment of what is right and wrong? And I guess some of this could be taken back to evolutionary psychology, because, you know, our environment has changed. And back in the days of, back in tribal days, you would not want to be too kind or anything like that. Because if you were, you would probably end up with no resources and you would probably die. So their moral code was different back like 16,000 years ago and prior to that, because the environment has changed. And as the environment changes and you have to adapt to the environment, you have to change what is morally righteous and morally wrong, right? Mm-hmm. So are we merely describing how people in their everyday doings and thinkings form a judgment about what is right or wrong, or are we prescribing how people ought to make these judgments? And if we do describe how human beings ought to make their judgment, who is making those decisions about how we ought to make those judgments, and why? What is the rationality behind it?
Who decides?
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the real question. Who decides what is moral, right? It's interesting to think about, because the person who decides ultimately has all the power.
Yeah, seriously.
Because it's true in the Catholic Church, right? So we have a hierarchy in the Catholic Church, and the Pope is the man on the top. So he pretty much decides, well, what's moral? What do we do? I mean, You're God's secondhand man. So if anybody knows what's moral, it's got to be you. And I think the same idea applies to politics, right? So when it comes to government, the left is really pushing for the government deciding what is moral.
Yeah. Would you? I forgot the question exactly that I was going to ask. I forgot the question I was going to ask. If I remember, I'll ask you later.
So morality. Let's backtrack a little.
Yeah.
When it comes to individuals with power, they have so much power that they can pretty much change the rules of morality. I think it's safe to agree that, back in history, the people with the most power, like Hitler, Stalin, Napoleon, Queen Elizabeth, Cortez, all these figures. I was thinking during the Spanish expedition.
Yeah.
Funny how her last name is Cortez. Connection. Perhaps it's all connected.
Yeah.
These individuals have the power to change what is right, what is wrong. So it's a scary thing to think about, because a person who has that kind of power and that kind of ability, they can pretty much say, well, I pretty much make the rules, and this is how it's going to be right now. And, some do it for the best, some do it for the worst. And
yeah, see, that's what I was going to actually ask, is that do you think when you make a moral set of codes, do you think that it is important for the people following this code to really understand what they're getting out of it? What are you really long-term getting out of following this moral set of codes? Because this is a massive decision that you have to stick with, right? For the rest of your life, you are going to follow this set of codes, and if you're going to follow it strictly, what are you going to get out of it? Are you going to get a peaceful life? Are you going to get, as a basis for reciprocity, are you going to, it's like treat your neighbor as I would treat them, whatever, thyself.
Golden rule.
Right? Like you treat your neighbor like you would treat yourself, essentially. Now, what are you getting out of that? Are you getting reciprocal bias where you guys treat each other very nice and you can go about your day and things will be really peaceful and productive? Or what are you getting out of it? I think it's important to educate people when they take on a moral set of codes, why they're taking on this set of codes. What is the benefit from it? Because human nature is to be selfish, right? And I think it's important to, understand that as humans are selfish, because of that reason, we need to educate them on what the benefits of it are going to be. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I think most people don't reach that point, to be honest, when it comes to rationalizing the moral choices themselves or the moral rules. Most people are influential, or are easily influenced. I think we can both agree on that. So it's evident to see that social media nowadays, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, people are constantly plugged in, and they are constantly told what is moral and what is not moral. They're fed a bunch of this feed that bombards them with strange ideas, right? So, it makes them question things about sexuality. It makes them question things about abortion, and it makes them question things about economics and it's very interesting, because I think social media nowadays really has changed a lot of young people's minds, because people tend to not think in respect to these types of issues. They don't usually reach that point, is what I'm trying to say. They don't usually reach that point of rationality of saying, okay, is this moral? Is this set of moral codes something I want to follow? Should I follow them? What am I going to get out of them in the future? Yeah. It's a process where they don't think about their future selves. They just think about their present selves. And where was I going with this? I think that was my point, to be honest.
Yeah.
Social media having
I have a thought
huge
on
impact.
this.
Go for it.
So this is just speculation, and I'm just thinking, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine, let's say, you get a certain benefit out of following this moral set of codes, okay? That religion instills in you, okay?
Okay, religion.
If you follow these codes, this set of rules, and you apply it, you will be successful, you will go to heaven, you are going to whatever, right? All those great things. And let's say you have someone who is not religious at the same time, who is dedicated to making his or her life fantastic, full of happiness, full of joy, full of, no drama, full of meaning, proper meaning that will propel them to want to get up every day out of bed, and things like that, okay? Now, if this person who is not religious and wants to create these great things for themselves in their life, are they going to find a way to make it happen without religion? And if so, would they benefit more if they did follow a religious set of codes, or a religious, or like a moral set of codes given by religion? And on top of this, if I really think about this, let's say you have, I remember watching in Family Guy one time where you remember, Chris, the boy of the family?
Yeah.
The yellow-haired kid. And this was hilarious, actually, because I think the family is Christian, and he's a teenager, and you know how teenagers are. They're like discovering their sexuality and whatever. And so he's like consistently in the restroom doing what, he's like masturbating all the time.
Sure, why not?
And so I think it was Peter who said, look, you don't, or his mom, I don't know what it was, but who said, look, God is watching over you. Like, you shouldn't do that so much, right? Or you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be doing that. But this also has side benefits, right? Like, there's a whole movement out there. I don't know if you've heard of this movement called NoFap, where it's like an online, like, it's like a whole consortium of men where,
I've heard of it.
They're dedicated to stop watching porn, essentially,
right,
and stop masturbating so excessively, right, because it leads to a lot of negative health consequences, like your dopamine receptors become they become less active,
it takes away their
and that
masculinity.
sort of thing.
Yeah,
exactly, and that sort of thing, and your pheromones start to change and everything. So now, do you think that if the kid was religious, he'd be more likely to follow that rule? Or is it if he found the rationality behind the NoFap movement and all the benefits that come with it, all the scientific theory about why it's not good to watch porn and this and that? Because so which one would be more effective? Would it be following this moral code?
Yeah, as you just try to say.
Or would it be just rational thought and telling them up front, like, dude, you need to not do this because A, B, and C? And what my thought process on this is that do you think that it's easier to influence people and control people through fear?
Yeah,
and what I mean by
boil
fear,
it down to fear, yeah,
because of God fearing, right? Yep. Like if you fear what God is going to do to you, you are going to easily you're going to more easily follow the rules than if you looked at the logic of what the good things that will come with following the rules are. And if you looked at the good things following the rules, some people inevitably will not want to follow those rules because they don't give a shit about themselves and their future, right? They're more hedonistic. They're more, I want to live for small pleasures. I want to live for the I don't know,
impulses,
Yes, exactly. I want to live for the impulses.
Yeah.
And I don't really care about the rationality behind doing all these good things for myself.
Yeah.
But if they were put under a religious code where God is watching you and they're fearful of it, then they're bound to follow it. You see what I'm saying? So which one is stronger? Is it exposing the person to the rationality behind the idea and the reasoning for the idea, or is it to make them fearful of God?
Interesting. That requires a complex answer, a very long answer too. So yeah. I think we can both agree that fear is a very good temporary motivator. So when it comes to getting people to do what you want, you invoke fear, whether through religion, through threat. I mean, it's evident through history that fear really got people to do things. In respect to today's situation, and I'm going to keep in the constraints of the no-fap movement. So let's take an individual teenage boy. Let's say he's going at it, and he's discovering his sexuality, and he's hit puberty.
Yeah.
Is he going to have a sense of strong discipline from religion or from the facts and the science?
Right.
Couple of things.
Go ahead.
It depends on the individual. It depends on the teenager. So their upbringing. So if their parents, for example, were really religious, very religious, and he was raised a religious teenager, I think he would go towards the fear more than the rational scientific viewpoint. But when it comes to a different type of teenager, he would definitely steer toward the rationality and the facts behind the defects or the side effects of the exploring and figuring out sexuality.
Yeah.
You were gonna say?
No, that's I didn't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and that's not really a good answer, to be honest, because all I'm saying is it depends on the teenager. So to come down to a consensus, in my opinion, I think you have to educate the teenage boy as much as possible. You have to tell him, listen, okay, so there's this idea of puberty, and it's haywired your mind, essentially, right? So you're developing into a man, and there's a bunch of hormones, and there's a bunch of changes going on in your body. And a lot of those changes can be good, but it just depends how you control it and how you manage it. Let's present you with a list of facts, and let's present you with a bunch of rationality behind this. And you can choose not to accept this. You can just go with the impulse and do what you want. And I think what's a good situation to lead this kid in is to let them experience it for themselves. So if they end up following impulses, I think they're going to recognize, well, if I just follow impulses, it's going to be a painful and a unrewarding development from the time you're a teenager to the time you're a young adult. So I think they have to go through the pain, and they have to go through the suffering, and let them make the ultimate decision on how they want to change and how they want to control their masculinity.
Yeah.
That's my viewpoint. I think it's a very Jordan Peterson viewpoint.
What a great guy.
What do you think?
I think you're 100% correct. I think if there is a way to actually combine both, then I would ideally want to do both. But I think you're right. It depends on the person, right? I mean, if you're gonna raise your kid religiously, that's one thing, right? Like you shouldn't, you should stick to your religious code and your moral code and tell them like, hey, look, that's not right because, whatever reasons, right? But at the same time, if you can also tell him, hey, you shouldn't be doing that too excessively because there are negative side effects to that, and these are some of the things that you might lose out on in the future because if you go down that road and it becomes too excessive, then you're not gonna you're gonna lose these benefits essentially, right?
I think when it comes to, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, go for it.
When it comes to this specific issue, this type of development of a teenager, so going through puberty, it ultimately depends. Oh shoot, I forgot where I was going. It depends on how well he can manage his impulses and how well he could actually feel a sense of meaning, right? So not only is it a sense of morality, but it's also a sense of, am I fulfilling my basic needs, right? So I think I refer to basic needs as, do you have meaningful relationships with individuals, right? Who who are not participating in this type of impulsive behavior? Do you have a sense of masculinity and a sense of belonging in respect to the opposite sex? Do you have a sense of power in respect to your own impulses, essentially? So I think there's a lot more at stake in that type of situation, because when it comes to a teenager, in my perspective, when it comes to a teenager excessively masturbating in that sense, let's say is like the worst case. There's obviously something missing in respect to a meaningful relationship, right? There's obviously something missing in respect to him being socially accepted. So it's a type of impulse that really drags you down, and it's a type of impulse that really it really is a bad substitute for deep connection. You know what I mean? Because when it comes to being intimate with another individual, whether it be a man or a female, whatever gets your boat floating, it's imperative that you have some type of relationship and how you can actually have some type of intimacy. Because I think that's a basic human need, right? So that sense of intimacy. Yeah. And I think people nowadays, to be honest, looking through social media, there's a lack of intimacy and there's a lack of meaning. There's a lack of deep relationships in respect to individuals, right? So, I mean, I just see that on firsthand because I'm an engineering major, and we're not known for our social our social skills and our deep relationships. So I've seen firsthand what guys can what they can really be deprived of in respect to this type of situation.
Definitely, yeah.
Where was I getting at? Morality. So it's a type of morality in respect to your own health. It's a health morality, essentially.
Okay.
That's my perspective on it.
Right.
Is there anything else to add? I guess nothing else, to be honest. What else?
Okay. I was gonna say there's a few different like theories on morality, right? So I mentioned a couple of them earlier. Moral subjectivism is one of them, and I was thinking about let's get into a couple of these and see what conclusions we can come to, or what ideas we can form. You know what's funny is every time I think I know more and I look for more answers, it's the more I realize I don't know. Exactly. So the more I know, it's the more I really don't know.
Philosophy, bro. It really gets to you. Yeah,
yeah, seriously. Kind of scary, huh?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's the thing. So moral subjectivism. Right and wrong is determined by what you, the subject, just happens to think or feel is right or wrong. So in its common form, moral subjectivism amounts to the denial of moral principles of any significant kind and the possibility of moral criticism and argumentation. In essence, right and wrong lose their meaning because so long as someone thinks or feels that some action is right, there are no grounds for criticism. If you are a moral subjectivist, you cannot object to anyone's behavior, assuming people are, in fact, acting in accordance with what they think or feel. This shows the key flaw in moral subjectivism. Probably nearly everyone thinks that it is legitimate to object on moral grounds to at least some people's actions. It is possible to disagree about moral issues.
Okay, let me get this straight. So there's a sense of morality in respect to every individual where you can never convince someone what they think should be right. So what I'm understanding is what you just said. Individuals who are doing the right thing because they ultimately believe that is the right thing to do.
Yes, and it's not only it's not just believe, but it's because they think and feel it that way.
Okay.
It's essentially it's whatever. So morality is subjective. That's why it's called moral subjectivism, right? So everyone has their own set of morals. So if I felt like killing someone today, and if I feel like it, then no one has the right to question me because I felt like it.
You felt like
kind of a thing, you know. So there's a major flaw in this thinking. And you know what's funny? For some reason, when I was reading through this and I came across the word "feel," the first thing that came to my head was Ben Shapiro's famous saying, "Facts don't care about your feelings."
Damn.
Now,
yeah, he said that before. Yeah.
And it almost reminds me of this, if you think about politically, leftist thinking, because now not every single, leftist argues this way, but I'm thinking the radical left. Oh, I feel like there should be 72 genders. I feel like I was descended from foxes. I feel like I was descended from pixies, so I'm pixiekin or I'm foxkin. Therefore, you are morally, I'm morally righteous, Does that make sense?
I think that kind of mindset can be applied to any demographic, to be honest. It can also be applied to white supremacists. So.
Oh, true. Yeah. It's like, I feel like my race is superior.
I feel like we have all power and we should actually shoot up Muslim synagogues. So.
Right.
There's those types of individuals too, no doubt. So I understand what you're trying to say. There's a sense of, and I think this really dives into the sense of meaning and the sense of, true rightism or true, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm at a loss of words tonight, folks. Like true meaning, right? So true sense of right doing. There's, I mean, even you and I have that type of mindset, right? So when it comes to the rational male, we believe that, these types of arguments and these types of ideas in the rational male, they have to be right in most cases.
Interesting. But okay, so that is interesting.
So many people disagree with us on that type of platform of ideas, and when it comes to games and stuff like that.
Right. And we're not talking about what's right or wrong here. We're talking about what's morally, what set of moral, rules to apply. So I guess, yeah, you're right. Because if I feel like, but see, here's the difference too. My feeling is not just based on feelings. It's based on factual evidence. It's based on case studies. It's based on evolutionary psychology.
If it's such fact, though, then why do so many people disagree?
That is a good case that you make. This is just what my opinion is. I don't think a lot of people even really study this stuff. They go with what they're
stupid.
No. I genuinely yes. I think that
yeah, no worries. I mean, there is that type of mindset when it comes to, well, here are the facts, here's the data. I mean, here is evolution. Why aren't you at least considering this type of idea? And, I'm pretty sure you encounter that all the time. But
all the time. It's
a sense of morality that everyone has, their own sense of morality, right? So when it comes to interdynamic relationships between females and males in respect to the rational male, it's a set of ideas and it's a set of essays that give a rational approach to, dating and hypergamy and relationships between man and a woman. And it's safe to say, I'm kind of going off my point of view here, that in the rational male, that nothing in there seems kind of moral. It's all like very straightforward. Wouldn't you agree? It's all very like,
I would say so.
It's all like rational based. It's all deductive reasoning. It's all non-biased and well, it is kind of biased because the guy himself, a little biased.
Yeah, but, it's more biased towards the male side.
That's true. Yeah, so I take that back. But most of it's not. You don't get a sense of morality in it, do you? Like a sense of ethics in it.
You know what? I think he does consider morality. You know what? Here's the thing. He does not consider morality, actually, because I remember in the third book at the end, he talked about the amorality of game. Amoral meaning, and this is the exact same thing that we talked about when it comes to the 48 laws of power. The same thing, the author said that, it's amoral, meaning it's lacking a moral sense. It is unconcerned with the rightness or wrongness of something. It just exists.
It just
right?
is.
This is just the way it is. Yeah, it just is. Whether you choose to identify with it morally or not, it exists. And this kind of reminds me of what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast with objectivism, Ayn Rand's objectivism philosophy, where irrespective of of morals and this moral code that human beings have assigned, this exists. It is objective. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Very rational and a very reasonable type of law, essentially. I hate to go there, but I wouldn't so far as to call it, a universal law. It's just a type of thing that is amoral, like you were saying. And, when it comes to morality, it's evident that everyone has their own morality. And, I'll bring my own point of view into this. Part of the reason why I decided not to engage in this type of alpha male mindset, so, practice game, pretty much, manipulate women to a degree where you're maximizing your male imperative and and things like that nature. Part of the reason why I didn't engage in that type of behavior to the degree that you do is because my sense of morality said this isn't right.
Interesting. Okay.
Not to say that, I was so locked in my beta views and I was plugged in, but my sense of morality goes towards, this type of game, this type of alpha mindset could end up being toxic and it could end up being destructive to my own health and my own mental stability. So I say, I'm not going to be engaged in this type of game and this type of pyramid scheme and this type of alpha manipulation. It's a sense of, okay, I recognize that these things are close to being law and they're very rational, and he goes through it, Tomasi, he goes through these ideas in a deductive manner, but I can't engage in it fully. So I'm going to decide to, trail off from the pyramid and see if I can create my own way. And little did I know, he has a category for myself.
Yeah.
Men going their own way, I guess, to put it bluntly. Yeah. But what was my point? I forget. My own viewpoint on this whole morality. Yeah. So my morality sense is I had a sense of morality because I was like, this isn't right for myself. And if I do end up being successful and being like the ultimate alpha male by the time I'm like 30 years old,
right.
It's not what I was, I could have developed to do it, but it just doesn't feel right, to be honest. A sense of feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. It's that sense of feelings is always going to be there in respect to everyone talking about this type of rational male ideas. You have your own feelings. I have my own feelings. All your guys in Candid Chit Chats have their own feelings.
Yeah. Exactly. No, everyone takes it differently. It's like my dad would always say this, that, you can sit a class down and teach them a subject, but they're all going to take it in a different way. They're not all of them, but a lot of them will take it in different ways, especially if it involves more complexities such as morality, such as ethics, such as, just the whole theory itself being complicated, right?
Right.
So yeah, no, I get that, definitely.
It's interesting. It really is.
Yeah.
Sense of morality.
So, moral. So we covered the first one, right? Moral subjectivism. That was the first one. The second one is cultural relativism, and I think this one will be interesting. Right and wrong is determined by the particular set of principles or rules the relevant culture just happens to hold at the time. Yeah. Cultural relativism is closely linked to moral subjectivism. it implies that we cannot criticize the actions of those in cultures other than our own. And again, it amounts to the denial of universal moral principles. Also, it implies that a culture cannot be mistaken about what is right and wrong, which seems not to be true, and so it denies the possibility of moral advancement, which also seems not to be true. So,
okay.
Wow.
So, we can both agree that the sense of cultural morality, it's very situational. So, everyone believes in their own set of rules, I suppose, when it comes to different cultures, different governments, different countries. What you were saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can never really change a culture's morality. It just is what it is. They believe they're doing the right thing no matter what. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, so it says right here, it also implies that a culture cannot be mistaken about what is right and wrong, which seems not to be true, and so it denies the possibility of moral advancement. So if the culture of the time says... Now, here's the thing, right? This is only one theory, one moral theory, so not everyone follows this, right? There are always people that are going to not go with the cultural... I guess, the cultural tide, the way that it's going. But let's say 500, 600 years ago, the right thing to do morally would have been one thing. The right way to, for example, it was moral to have slaves. It was fine, right? It was moral to treat women as, not equals or, not even worthy of, I guess, a vote or something like that, right?
Uh-huh.
But as time evolved, there were people that are outside the cultural relativism, mindset that have shifted the way the culture thinks. And so the cultural relativism shifts over time, right? In today's world, it's more of this radical leftist thinking, or at least the majority of it seems to be that way by the way the media portrays it, right? Now, I think it's based on the time period you're talking about and even the region of the world that you're talking about. So yeah, like the country and whatnot, and really the culture, but yeah, essentially you were right. Yeah, culture cannot be mistaken because, it's pretty much right, and that's it.
I think it's a type of thinking that can give people the wrong idea about morality itself. So, I'm thinking about the political platform in respect to the left. You have different types of culture out there. There's outrage culture. There's rape culture, essentially. There's, what other cultures are there? There's political correctness culture, something like that.
Right, PC culture, yeah.
PC culture. There's all these different types of cultures. I can't name them all off. But they each believe that their sense of morality is the best. Yes? I think?
Yeah.
Okay, with that being said, they have a sense of moral superiority that they believe in. So,
yep,
they try to push that moral set of standards to everybody that they encounter. So, you have individuals like from the Me Too movement constantly pointing out individuals who they believe are immoral. Right? They have that sense of power of saying, this individual's immoral, Bill Cosby's immoral, therefore he should be taken down. In some cases, they're correct, right? So they do point out the individuals who are very immoral. In other cases, and I think in most cases, they're wrong. They point out individuals like Brett Kavanaugh, and they say, you're an immoral individual. You need to be taken down. We're going to tear you apart. But their morality is so strong that they disregard the facts and they disregard rational evidence. So going back to the example of Brett Kavanaugh, the Me Too movement were saying, this Supreme Justice person, I forget the title, but this individual is a rapist. He committed an act of sexual assault and sexual harassment back in the day of the 1990s. Now they don't stop to think and say, well, can we really verify that he did it? Can we really verify that this is the man that is the true rapist?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to verify it. I believe that their sense of morality is so strong and is so superior that it blinds them in a way where it's interfering with their way of reasoning. I think that was my point. I was kind of thinking as I as I went along there. I think that's my point. There's this idea of moral superiority that gets people blind in most cases. And I think we even have that effect too at times, where we're trying to talk about the rational male with certain individuals, and we have a sense of morality in respect to, well, these are right because we believe they're right. They're based on solid evidence, based on evolution, and based on deductive reasoning.
Right.
Are we right? Maybe many people will agree with us if they took the time to be deductive themselves and to be reasonable themselves. But this power of moral superiority can really get to people. That's my point there. It could be applied to just about every type of hierarchy there is, every type of institution. There is academia, for example. So universities nowadays, they believe their sense of morality is superior. So they decide to alter the culture within universities themselves. Places like Berkeley, UCLA, USC, heavily left-leaning, because they believe that will change the world. They believe that will change the culture around them. The sense of the platform that is around the university, like through cities and whatnot. So yeah, moral superiority in high institutions like academia, moral superiority in places like the White House, moral superiority in places like I don't know, the military.
Yeah.
I guess to a degree.
Well, the military, would you say the military is very moral if they're killing people for America's interests and hegemony, and they're carrying out the interests of America?
Okay. So
that's
I think that's a different story. Yeah, when you bring in the idea, or you bring in the fact that they're actually killing and murdering people in regard to America's interest.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of military in respect to they're defending like a lot of the poorer nations and the poorer countries.
Oh yeah.
So we have So we have like garrisoned military in like the Philippines, I think, and Japan as well. So sense of morality there, where we're like the big brother. It's like, oh, we need to protect everybody because we're the daddy, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think that's my whole point, or my whole spiel about moral superiority.
Definitely. Okay.
What else?
So let's go over the third moral theory here, because this one's really interesting. Some of these are very interesting, actually. So number 3, it's called ethical egoism. Right and wrong is determined by what is in your self-interest, or it is immoral to act contrary to your self-interest. Ethical egoism is usually based upon psychological egoism, that we, by nature, act selfishly. Ethical egoism does not imply hedonism, or that we ought to aim for at least some higher goods, such as wisdom, political success, etc. but rather that we will ideally act so as to maximize our self-interest. This may require that we forego some immediate pleasures for the sake of achieving long-term goals. Also, ethical egoism does not exclude helping others. However, egoists will help others only if this will further their own interests. An ethical egoist will claim that the altruist helps others only because they want to, perhaps because they derive pleasure out of helping others, or because they think there will be some personal advantage in doing so. That is, they deny the possibility of genuine altruism because they think we are all by nature selfish. This leads us to the key implausibility of ethical egoism, that the person who helps others at the expense of their self-interest is actually acting immorally. Many think that the ethical egoist has misunderstood the concept of morality, i.e., morality is the system of practical reasoning through which we are guided to constrain our self-interest, not further it. Also, that genuine altruism is indeed possible and relatively commonly exhibited. Yeah.
I think of most politicians could be applied to that egoistic morality category.
Right.
Self-interest, furthering their own interests. At times, they can even become immoral, where they forget the whole idea that there is a right and a wrong.
Yeah.
I just think of politicians in general.
Yeah. Well. When you say right and wrong, what constitutes right and wrong, right? Because like the very first sentence of this one was, the main premise of it was, right and wrong is determined by what is in your self-interest, and it's actually immoral to act contrary to your self-interest.
Oh.
That's weird, huh?
That's kind of weird.
About it. Because that's not a moral theory that we run across a lot. But we do accept, a lot of people in this country especially do accept the fact that, human beings are by nature more selfish, or at least most people think so. And I
think American
so,
culture has that idea that most people are self-centered, or most people have their own agenda.
Yeah, and you can even see this in capitalism, right?
Right.
We take and Adam Smith's whole theory about human beings by nature are selfish. Therefore, we have to set up a system in which we can utilize natural selfishness to benefit all of society. Meaning, if you want to become rich, you have to provide some sort of value in return. So all these companies that provide, like Starbucks and Apple providing all these products, and
Supreme.
Samsung and whatever, they want money. And that is out of self-interest. They want to maximize profits and minimize their costs. Therefore, they have to provide something back to society. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And since capitalism has worked so well, at least in this country, I think for the most part, at least this is my opinion about it. I think that pretty much proves, in my eyes, that human beings by nature are selfish. Not necessarily saying that this moral theory should be followed or is correct, but I do think by nature human beings, for the most part, are selfish. What are your thoughts?
I disagree on that, to be honest.
Okay.
I think
so. How would you differ?
By nature, I think human needs have a sense of. They definitely have that sense of survival, right? So they can definitely go into that mode where, it becomes like the tribal days all over again, and that connects directly to being selfish. But I think human beings on a natural state, they need a sense of community. They need a sense of meaning. So, in order to achieve that, they need to be part of a community, I believe, or some type of connection in general. So, to a degree, human beings are not selfish to their core. And to be honest, I can't really back that up as much as I wish I could right now.
Right.
So, I think I'm trying to understand your viewpoint first, where the idea that humans are intrinsically selfish because we have a basic need for survival. Yes?
I wouldn't say basic need for survival. I just think in general, we first and foremost think about ourselves before we think about everyone else.
Well, I think that's encouraged in today's culture, right? So it's encouraged to have that self-interest in general. So to focus on yourself and to indulge in self-pleasure, I assume, through like, I don't know, purchasing things or stuff of that nature.
So it says here, ethical egoism does not imply hedonism. And hedonism is essentially, things like indulging in pleasures such as like buying things or so have you heard of what hedonism versus like if something is hedonic versus eudaimonic? Do you know the difference between that?
Not really.
So hedonic is something where you indulge in some things that give you short-term pleasure, such as buying things, such as
gambling, I think, addictions.
Yes, gambling,
drugs,
alcoholism, drugs, exactly. These are short-term pleasures that are there, but in the long term, it doesn't give you anything. And eudaimonic is the opposite. It's more about well-being in your long term. It's more about achieving, fulfillment, self-actualization, that sort of thing. It says here, ethical egoism does not imply hedonism, or that we ought to aim for at least some higher goods, but rather that we ideally act so that we maximize our self-interest. What else does it say? So this may require that we forego some immediate pleasures for the sake of achieving long-term goals.
Sacrificing.
So
yeah.
So if I'm, let's say, if most guys go to the gym because they want to look better, or they want to, be healthier, or they want to look better for the opposite sex, are they not doing so for selfish reasons because they love themselves, I guess, and they want to up their aesthetics, they want to up their health, they want to up their game with women?
That's
so
the main
speak.
motivation, I believe, in respect to most people when they work out. They have the sense of narcissistic viewpoint, right? So it's like they work out because they want to feel good about themselves in the mirror. And with that being said, they can confirm that good self-image by attracting members of the other sex, essentially. So I do agree with you on that point.
Yeah. Forgot the main point. What I was gonna say.
I think you were going to connect it to someone who goes to the gym for like health benefits in the future, maybe. Like they're not concerned.
Yeah, no. Just in general, like, okay. Oh, okay, yeah. Here we go. So all those things, right? Whether it comes to aesthetics, to be more attractive to the opposite sex, for our own health, for whatever reason that you go to the gym, wouldn't it be selfish purposes? Because you're not necessarily thinking about anybody else, unless you're thinking like, other people get to see my awesome body or something like that, and therefore I'm thinking about other people.
8-pack, 12-pack, yep.
Yeah. But so wouldn't you say that would be self-interested? Or let's say we go to a job and we provide, or let's say we're starting a business, right? Actually, okay, I'm starting to see your point. I think it depends from person to person. I think everyone may have a higher level of higher base nature in which their self-interest is higher, and there are and then there are other people who are less self-interested by nature. And the reason I say this, and I think it comes down to meaning also in your life. So if you find a certain meaning, let's say, and you want to start a business to implement this sort of meaning and to impact other people's lives, part of the reason could be that, you want to feel good about yourself, that you're doing this, right? But at the same time, you're also impacting the lives of others, and this is giving you meaning. Now, you are probably going to make money from this, and that but that is not your primary motivator. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That is a motivator, but not your primary motivator.
Yeah.
Your primary motivator is the meaning that comes from impacting and in others' lives and leaving a dent on this planet.
Right.
So, I can understand in that sense that person does not prioritize their self-interest above others.
Right. I believe so.
Or yeah, above others' interest.
It's an idea that meaning is so powerful that it could actually alleviate your suffering, alleviate your pain, and alleviate any kind of essentially bad feeling in your life. So I think for some people, maybe for most, it's a basic need that they have to meet, essentially. Whether it being self-pleasure in respect to, I don't know, being narcissistic or getting the most money, apparently, which could be construed as being selfish. But you have others who genuinely just want to have an impact in others' lives.
Right.
But
yeah.
That's what I was trying to convey. But
yep.
Where were we before?
So we're on the fourth moral theory now.
How many are there?
It's called divine. Huh?
How many are there?
There's a total of 10.
10.
And we're on the fourth one.
Oh my god, we're gonna be here all night.
We'll go over a couple for sure.
Okay.
So the next one is divine command theory.
Command theory.
And this one, it's basically, so it says, many claim that there is a necessary connection between morality and religion, such that without religion, in particular without God or gods, there is no morality, i.e. no right and wrong behavior. Although there are related claims that religion is necessary to motivate and guide people to behave in a morally good way. Most take the claim of the necessary connection between morality and religion to mean that right and wrong come from the commands of God. And this view is known as divine command theory. The upshot is that the action is right or obligatory if God command, we do it. Wrong if God commands, we refrain from doing it. And morally permissible if God does not command that it not be done. So essentially that's the main point of that one.
Okay.
Highly religiously connected. So if you are religious, this one will apply heavily to you.
Yeah.
But
heavily.
I think, and this is just my opinion, I think there's not much reasoning behind this. It's more of, if God says it to be true, then that's it. There's no questioning it. There is no, that's it. Like, that's the be all end all.
Well, some people, that's all they need, to be honest. That sense of meaning, it's so powerful to some individuals where they believe in a higher power. And through that higher power, that gives everything. It gives them a sense of morality. It gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them a sense of meaning. It gives them a sense of feeling. It gives them a sense of happiness too. Some people, it works for them. It honestly does. So
right.
I've seen this through individuals who become priests, right? So they take the oath to be God's servant for the rest of their lives. You also have monks who go to the monasteries and just live their lives away from society for the rest of their lives. So it works for some people. It honestly does.
Yeah, definitely. So it's essentially, it's based and founded on the idea of religion, right?
Yeah.
And this idea that if you really strongly believe in your faith, and you do have faith, then you are more so inclined to follow your religion. And this is what you're going to base your morality off of.
Right. Yeah, that is strong. Would you say that people with that type of morality have the strongest sense of morality out of all the other moralities that are out there? So
yes.
Are they the superior morality, the ones who are deeply faithful to their own religion?
So you're saying, will they stick to their moral set of codes more than any other one? Any other person?
Yeah, essentially.
Yes, probably so. Yeah, because I think, for example, every self-interested person, right, when we talk about ethical egoism, has a degree of non-self-interest, right? And that shows up in many cases, right? Anybody, for example, who's more of a moral subjectivist will, not always go with what they feel. It's not all about feelings. Even the people who are predominantly basing a lot of their thought process on feelings, they're not all going to be, looking at just feelings. They will have some facts to back up their thing, right? Cultural relativism, that one's up to debate, but
right.
Yeah, no. So comparatively speaking, yes, 100%. So far from what I've seen out of the theories that we've seen, yeah, it looks like divine command theory is one that most people would undeniably follow without breaking the code.
It has the most influence, I think.
Yeah,
that is interesting, to be honest. It really is. Let's see here. So just looking at the time right now, our time, we are at 1 hour and 55 minutes. Okay. If you are still listening, listener, awesome. Props to you, because this type of topic is, I wouldn't say boring, but it's a little, we're just scratching the surface. Like we're just calling out the simple terms, and we're just saying what we think. But if you want to,
we probably have a part 2.
Maybe. I mean, it is a very deep conversation to have.
Yeah.
But if you think you have a specific type of morality that you want to share, go ahead and comment. We'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we pretty much said our own perspective on morality itself and what we think it is. And I think that's do you want to call it an episode? Do you think we have everything?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
No, I think we got pretty far. We got a lot of good discussion in on this one.
We talked a lot, yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much we talk about in general. Oh my god. Jeez. We do 2 hours.
Yeah. This one felt long for some reason.
It felt really long for some reason.
We always have 2-hour episodes, but this one in particular, just, I don't know what it was. This one took it out of me. Maybe I was already tired coming into it.
Probably.
Or maybe it was a topic, yeah.
Because it took a lot of thinking, to be honest. I feel my brain power. Yeah, I feel my brain power just gone now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll let you guys know what our next topic is going to be. But as of next episode, we got an Odyssey report coming up. So
yeah,
and hopefully we'll have a better quality episode next episode, because we'll be together in person actually. So
yeah,
look forward to that. And
definitely.
If you want to record it, I mean, camera wise, it's up to you. We'll have the discussion off mic.
Definitely, yeah, for sure.
But as of right now, good episode.
Cool. See you soon.
Signing off. Thanks for listening.